I've been Asian Sports Talk up and rolling on a Thursday. He's Ryan Roberts. I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse Stiers will be in after a little while with Rapid Fire. No guest today. It is just me and Squirrel, and the second to the last time we'll be doing this little Tuesday thing together.
Yes. I like how you threw the little squirrel thing in there. That's hilarious.
I just had to. I had to.
You know what's funny, Sean? I was actually thinking about this because I was in Brian and Vince's show like an hour ago, and people started saying squirrel in the chat because I was just commenting back and forth and stuff. I'm just thinking in my mind, you know what's hilarious is that squirrel actually isn't my nickname in any other part of my life other than Irish Breakdown. So as soon as the next job starts, literally I'm never going to hear the squirrel nickname again outside of an occasional appearance on an Irish Breakdown podcast, which is just absolutely funny to think about, really.
Or we could just go with my favorite, Jabroni, just
sure.
as DK is saying. Who is this just jabroni? Yeah. Speaking of other shows, we've got a lot of recruiting stuff we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Yep. And I've got something that I saw on the Champions Lounge today that apparently you guys talked about yesterday that I thought might be worth kind of, maybe I wanted to get your sort of take on it. I guess you guys were talking about defensive line recruiting yesterday.
Yes. Yep.
And Brian Smith, the scout, was with you and Sean Davis.
Yep.
And you guys were talking about basically what it costs to sign an interior defensive lineman these days. And Brian Smith was saying, two defensive linemen were being offered 2-year guarantees at $500,000 a year, and Notre Dame's not willing to match those offers, which I completely understand. And so like this guy was kind of posted something on the Champions Lounge about it, and Driscoll said, essentially Notre Dame is setting guys up with NIL deals, right, which we know through recruiting, but they're never just going to throw bundles of cash like this at any high school recruit, coming out of high school. And again, I completely agree with that philosophy. So I guess my question is, if it's becoming so expensive to get a high-end recruit defensive lineman out of high school, do you zag a little bit, like Oakland A's, like Moneyball, is the better thing to do, kind of what they've done, like with wide receivers this year, and just go out to the transfer portal and try to get more guys via the portal to fit those needs, rather than, because less development time. You're
right.
I don't know. Is there still going to be a lot of cost involved? Like, are they at such a market value that regardless of when you get them, you're going to have to, pay them these exorbitant amounts? What do you think about that?
It's a great question because, one, I would say this, Sean, is that might be the market for a big time defensive lineman, but that market has always existed. It's just more out in the open now, right? Sure. Like that's what this pay for play allowance has now showed us, as far as like what is actually a market value for a defensive lineman. I will put it into like this, as far as like some more context. I was down in Indianapolis for the combine this past year, and there I was talking to an agent that is a sports agent that also deals in the NIL space. So he works with NFL draft prospects. So he also works with younger guys, NIL. He literally, Sean, most of his job is moving guys from one school to the other. And there is money grab involvement in it. He told me that he had a backup defensive back. I think it was a corner. I can't remember 100% though. I think it was a backup corner who entered the portal. Again, a second stringer that got $200,000 to move to another school. A backup, not even a player that you know about. That's a known commodity. That's a guy that is like for sure going to be a guy. It was just a depth piece that cost $200,000. I mean, that is just wild to think about. And now schools are getting smarter with that stuff. The ones that do that upfront payment, because now they're managing it as a per month basis, not so much a year to year basis. They're saying like, you'll get paid this much per month, because that protects them in case a guy transfers again, or he enters the draft early, or he decides to sit out a couple games because he just doesn't want to play. Like, all those things are to kind of help a school. But to like circle back to your question, I think that for me, Notre Dame is not going to play that game, right? And when we're talking about the market value, we're talking about the 5-star defensive lineman that Georgia wants, that Alabama wants, that USC wants, that like some of these schools that do play that game once. I think Notre Dame needs to be smart with their approach to defensive line recruiting. They have the NIL backing. They can now say Notre Dame does very well in that space now. So they can show them a plan of like, hey, you're going to make a lot of money here, right?
And that's that's part of my point. Yeah.
That's the pitch. I think that what you're going to see is that Notre Dame's still going to go after some top defensive linemen, but like the Justin Terrys of the world, the Elijah Griffins, like those kids, the Bear Alexanders, like those guys aren't going to come to Notre Dame, like just flat out, but they never were going to come to Notre Dame. I think what you need to do and what Notre Dame is trying to do, which I do commend them for, is you use the NIL pitch that you have, you use the development pitch you have, you continue to build that room through supplementing and finding, I don't want to call it diamond in the rough, because diamond in the rough is a very negative connotation for some people in the recruiting space. They're just going to think, oh, you're just offering a bunch of 3 stars. No, you're not offering 3 stars, but what you are going to find is a Davion Dixon, who is a 4-star defensive lineman in Miami, right? That is committed to Notre Dame in the 2025 class, but he was a high academic kid. And yes, Miami still wants him. All the Florida schools have still offered him. He has SEC offers, but he was a special case of a kid that does see the bigger picture, right? Yeah. So that is a difference of player. And then I think the other way that they're going to go about it and what they have been going about it is they're trying to find some guys that are developmental from a physical perspective. So they're looking for guys like Joseph Reif. They're looking for guys like Armel Mukum. They're looking for guys like Devin Houston, guys that are maybe bigger defensive ends in the high school game that have the body type to develop into that guy. I mean, you could even throw Riley Mills into that, even though I know Riley Mills was a highly regarded recruit. He was 270 pounds coming out of high school, and now he's a 300-plus pounds interior defensive lineman. So I think finding some of those high-level, talented, strong-side defensive ends that also have the frame to develop in that profile, I think that's another way you can supplement the fact that you're not going to get Justice Terry to come to campus, for instance.
Right. Like some of these guys where like maybe they're playing defensive end in high school, but they've got the body to move inside, kind of like O'Reilly Mills and that kind of,
And one thing I wanted to add, which I think Mike put into the chat, which is a very astute observation, is that portal guys in most cases are going to cost more because they're 1-year rentals at that point, right?
But I guess my point is like, with the success, and again, I didn't realize there was such a, I mean, I know that there's a demand for, really good interior defensive linemen, but like in comparison, the fact that Notre Dame has been able to go out and get 2 high-profile quarterbacks the last 2 years with Hartman and Riley Leonard, and obviously the NIL packages they're able to set them up with goes a long way, just like the receivers they brought in this year. Those NIL packages go a long way. So while, they might cost more, again, I'm just kind of thinking, through this, like, okay, but you've also got guys with a proven track record of playing in college. They're going to be a little bit, more physically imposing because they've been in a college weight program for a couple of years. They've got college experience. And, again, even though you're not just going to plop a couple bags of cash in front of them to come here, deferment or whatever, like you can feel more comfortable in setting them up with even bigger NIL deals, I guess is kind of what I was thinking.
And I don't think that there is ever a time where you should shy away from the conversation, right? So like this is me saying that big time defensive lineman in the 2026 class that is a 5-star and is in the deep South. Like I think Notre Dame should still pursue and should still have a conversation there and see, because you never know, man. Like there's some kids that might, although they come from a very SEC heavy backing and they're a kid that kind of fits that SEC profile, they might still see things a little bit differently there ultimately, right? I would say this though, Sean, is that, and this is a little bit of a generalization. It is like full transparency. This is a generalization. I think quarterbacks sometimes are a little bit more thoughtful than interior defensive linemen, right? Like I just honestly, I think that
like they can see the big picture a little bit better is what you're saying.
Because look, think of it this way, Sean, like we always talk about it with the NIL stuff. A quarterback at Notre Dame is going to make a lot of money. Right. Going to make a lot of money off NIL. Huge, big opportunities. Defensive linemen, yes, but maybe not quite as transparent of like how much money they're really going to make. So maybe as you get more data on like, hey, this is what Howard Cross pulled in last year. This is what Riley Mills pulled in. Maybe that begins to come to fruition, but I really do think that Notre Dame, for now at least, they are going to pick their spots. They're going to find the right fits, and they're going to attack players that might have developmental upside on top of it. Like, you
Okay.
can't overload with that type of player, which is why, I mean, like, I think 2025 is a decent like mix of defensive linemen, right? Like, I think you were a guy short as far as a one high level guy that you could have went after, but you got Davion Dixon, who, again, Miami, and all the Florida schools, you got him to come up north, a 6'2", 305-pounder. I mean, that's a good get, obviously. You got Christopher Burgess, a local kid that Alabama wanted, Ohio State wanted. He had a lot of money that was going to be thrown at him, obviously. But then you did find guys like Joseph Reif and Gordy Solstead, who are not, again, they're not going to play interior defensive linemen for Notre Dame year one, more than likely, because they're both right around probably 250 pounds right now. But year two, year three, that's where you're kind of projecting with some of those guys. So I think it's just finding a mix is the biggest thing for Notre Dame. You don't want all just no-brainer guys. You want to find a couple of developmental guys, and you want to find a good mix overall.
But I mean, when you spell all this stuff out, and I'm going to probably open up a little bit of a can of worms by saying this.
We could do a whole show on this, sir. We could do a whole show on this. Yeah.
Feels like we're saying it's not all Al Washington's fault.
It's not. No, it's not. It's not
like
all Al Washington's.
Where I'm coming from there? Like,
no,
all this.
Yes. No. It's a very good thought, right? So it's not Al Washington's fault in the sense of the pool that he is pulling from is probably not as large as you would want it to be. Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed. But there's been a couple faults with just, I think, some decisions that have been made on Al Washington's fault, which is more that's really my, like, I don't blame Al Washington at all. I don't blame Al Washington at all in 2025 for not staying on Elijah Griffin and convincing him to come play at Notre Dame. Like, he was just never going to, right? Like, whether it was Mike Elston or Ed Orgeron, like, it doesn't matter who the defensive line coach is at Notre Dame. Elijah Griffin was never going to come play at Notre Dame. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. But I think it's cooling on Marco Jones, deciding not to recruit him as a Viper. It was cooling on Jarquez Carter early in his recruitments when you probably could have been in it until the end. It's a couple of those decisions that's been more my frustration with Al Washington.
I get you. I didn't realize, again, like, until I read this thread, I didn't realize just how sort of intricate the defensive line recruiting has become obviously, especially in the last few years with all the money at play, that's involved just to get him here. Now it's obviously, like, everything has changed quite a bit just in the last 3 years, but it sounds like that one even more so.
It's not going to stop changing either for everyone that covers recruiting. And I mean, you have to be ready for that, Sean. I mean, it's the same way in, like, the NFL draft space as well. Like, evolution happens. I mean, and honestly, you could probably go over just to the world of sports in general. I mean, every year I feel like we're talking about what's the latest trend in football, what's working on in the recruiting trail. I mean, we're talking about three, and obviously I know the one hasn't been approved, obviously, and it didn't get approved, but we're talking about recruiting calendars getting changed every single year. Like, it is just a ever evolving landscape, to say the least.
Absolutely is. And by the way, 29 days until the start of Notre Dame training camp, July 31st. The countdown is on to that, but we've got plenty of things to count down in terms of Notre Dame football recruiting for this month, and I think everyone has had a big red circle around July 5th and what's going on with Jadon Blair, who's going to make his announcement this Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I already have my commitment preview ready for you all because, again, I wanted to not work too much on Thursday, right? So we'll save some of that for Friday. But yes, Jadon Blair is set, and he's the star safety out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Mount Tabor, 2025 class, 6'4", 190 pounds. He will be making his college decision on Friday, July 5th at 3 o'clock Eastern time. I believe he is doing it at his high school. So he gets to share the moment with his coaches, with his family, with everybody involved, his teammates, all that great stuff. So Notre Dame is in a great spot on that one. Michigan, Penn State are a couple of the teams that have been near the top as well. I know he took official visits to Florida State and South Carolina as well. But I'm anticipating good news unless something happens down the stretch. But Notre Dame has certainly put themselves in a great spot for Mr. Blair.
All right. I mean, I know that's going to make a lot of people happy. We had, people in here on the We In, We Out show last week asking about if July 5th couldn't come soon enough. And I had forgotten that July 5th was Blair's announcement date. And obviously
It's his
everyone is
17th birthday, Sean, which is it's a great moment for him and his family, man.
good
17th
time to be
birthday.
17. Yep.
Wish I was 17 again. Someone, in the last show, Brian's show, someone made a comment like, "Oh, Ryan's a kid" or something like that, like joking, obviously. And I'm like, dude, I wish I was a kid again. Like, that is not an insult that you think it is. Like, it is at all not an insult. You mean I don't have to pay bills anymore? Like, absolutely. Sounds great to me personally.
Does your body hurt when you get out of bed yet? That's the question.
my body. Wait, what were we doing the other day? We were doing something. I was doing something the other day with Juliet, my daughter. We went somewhere, and Sean, my body still hurts, dude. And I'm just like, I don't even. What was I do? Oh, we went to the trampoline park, Sky Zone near us.
Yeah.
So we were jumping on trampolines, going in ball pits and everything. Dude, my back hurt for 2 days, brother. Like, it's insane how old I'm getting at this point.
Yeah. Tell me about it. All right. How about Tanu Kynes? His commitment's coming up here pretty quick too.
Yeah, it's been a wild one with Tanu Kynes because nobody else has really verified this date, but literally someone put it out there. He retweeted it. So apparently he's going to commit to a school on July 8th, which is Monday at some time. We don't know a time. We don't know if it's going to be streamed. Knowing Tanu just to the amount I do, I'm sure that Tanu Kynes is going to be a guy that's just going to drop a graphic on Twitter and just leave. Like, I don't think he's one of those guys that is going to like say it, do this big announcement type of thing. It's just not his style. But 2025 receiver, Houston, Texas, Decaney High School, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's got 4.39 speed, I think, is verified on him. I mean, he's a big time speedster. He took official visits, Sean, to Notre Dame, obviously, to Texas. He went to USC, he went to Baylor, and I think he went to Arizona State was the ones that he's been to. So it's kind of been a 3-horse, or it mostly has been a 2-horse race, but a third has just kind of entered in. Notre Dame, I think, is still the leader here, and I expect them to be very hard to beat going down the stretch. But Texas has obviously made things interesting because Texas is the home state school. There's obviously a lot of pull to stay, play for the Longhorns. And the other school is USC. I keep joking about, like, we know what USC's pitch was late to try to get to Nuke, which I think people can use their minds of common sense. But Notre Dame, Texas, USC, I think it's more of a Notre Dame-Texas battle and USC trying to come from behind. But I think Notre Dame is in a pretty good position going down the stretch on the 8th.
That you know of, have either of the Notre Dame quarterback recruits, kind of been working on Tanu?
Oh, yeah. Deuce Knight works on everybody, Sean. And the good thing is that Tanu was actually on his official visit the same weekend as Deuce Knight. So Derek Meadows and Tanu Kynes were both on campus.
I think I've seen
the
some
same
of those photos
weekend.
now that you mentioned it.
Yeah. So Deuce Knight has been putting in the work, to say the least.
Yep. All right. So this Friday, Jadon Blair makes his announcement, and then next Monday, the 8th, Tanu Kynes, whether it's a hit and run or whatever it happens to be on social media kind of thing. So as of right now, no other July commitments anticipated by anyone Notre Dame's involved with?
Yeah, I would say it like this, is that there's a couple, it's a small board in 2025. So I wouldn't be shocked if a couple guys announced commitment dates at some point. Could it be in July? Okay. Could it be in August? I think that we are going to see a few guys come off the board, though. A couple names, obviously. Madden Faramo, I think, is in decision-making mode now, the star linebacker out of California. I would expect him to set a commitment date at some points, whether that is Notre Dame or Texas, kind of down the stretch, or USC. One of those, obviously, is kind of the front runners for him. I think Notre Dame's in a good spot there. I know people are kind of buzzing continuously because there's been a future cast or a crystal ball. I can't remember which one it was, for Nathaniel Wusu-Boateng, who is the younger brother of Jeremiah.
I did see that yesterday, now that you mention it. Yeah.
I don't know, because he talked to me the last time I spoke to him about potentially moving up a commitment date to sometime this summer. Now, I don't know exactly when that will be, but it's possible that maybe something happens in August, but we're kind of in wait and see mode on that one. The other guy to keep a close eye on, because Derek Meadows, I think, is still, like, I don't know if he's in a rush to make a decision this summer. If September 1st was kind of thrown out there, but we don't have anything that's verified there. The other guy that I would throw out is Dylan Robinson, the wide receiver out of California. He's a guy that he's in decision-making mode right now. Told me as soon as he was done his last official, which was the weekend of the 21st through the 23rd, he was going to sit down with his family and figure it out. So could he commit sometime in July to a school? Possible. Could it wait until August? Very possible. But either way, we'll have a summer decision from Dylan Robinson as well.
All right. Grill and Chill is later this month, a few weeks away, right?
Yeah.
What do we know about that right now?
July 25th. I actually haven't even asked anybody if they're still going with the Grill and Chill nickname, but that's what it's been the last couple of years. So I'm just assuming that that's what it is. For people that don't know too much about this one, so this is the last big visitor weekend of the summer for the most part, right? And you have the next class. So we're finishing up 2025 right now. There's going to be 2026 kids that are going to be on campus for the Grill and Chill barbecue. And every year, whether you look at this past year, the year before, every year there's multiple kids that end up in the class for Notre Dame from the Grill and Chill event. So I already have a few names that have been posted at boards.com on the visitor list. So there's definitely a couple to note really early. But again, if you look at that list in its entirety when it's finished and when it's passed, there's typically like 4 to 5 kids at least that end up in the class based upon that barbecue and them being there, or cookout, whatever you want to call it.
Do they do that on campus? Do they do that at Freeman's house? Where do they typically do that?
I think it's a mix. I think there's some time that's spent at Coach Freeman's house, but I think that the actual cookout, I believe, is somewhere on campus. I don't know if they cook out at Coach Freeman's house, but okay. Yeah.
All right. So July 25th, we'll look for more names popping up, I'm sure, from that 2026 class.
Already got 3 on there, man. And they're 3 very important names, to say the least, for Notre Dame in 2026.
All right. Good deal. Wanted to also ask you about, you're going to be doing more NFL stuff here coming up pretty soon, officially anyway.
Yes.
Once you leave us in your rear view mirror, but ESPN's got a recent mock draft out. Benjamin Morrison going 13th to the Steelers, and Riley Leonard in there at number 20 to the Jets. What did you think about that?
I was not shocked about Benjamin Morrison. So based upon spring grades that I've seen and just like general analysis out there, the NFL is very high on Benjamin Morrison, right? Like it's the combination of
good reason.
He's a verified 6 foot. I think his length is going to be good. He's a good overall athlete, a plus athlete in that regard. He's been very productive for 2 years. He's going to be a 3-year starter basically at Notre Dame. So he's played a lot of football. And so checks a lot of boxes, man. He really does. So I know there's probably going to be some conversations down the road as far as, the shoulder injury and gaining weight and like that type of stuff. Like there's going to be things that people are going to nitpick, but overall, am I shocked that there's a mock draft that had him in the top 15? No. I think a lot of NFL teams, this is just from conversation I've had early, I think a lot of NFL teams are going to have Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, as kind of the CB1 for the most part early in the summer. But I do think that Benjamin Morrison, Travis Hunter, and there's might be another name or two, have a chance to, contend to be the top guy off the board. So wasn't shocked at all about Benjamin Morrison. I was like semi-surprised about Riley Leonard, number 20 overall to the Jets. Not because I don't think he's talented enough, Sean. Like I think that he is talented enough to be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this class in 2025, potentially. I have just been seeing a lot of buzz on him lately, man, from people that I respect. Like full transparency, this ESPN mock draft that came up, that was Matt Miller. I'm not a Matt Miller guy at all. Like I do not really respect his work, even to be honest with y'all.
I've seen some of your Twitter shots. I believe that.
I'm gonna call it like I see it, man. And just not a ton of respect out there, but there are other people in the space that I respect greatly that also think very highly of Riley Leonard. Guys like Jordan Reed, who's also at ESPN. Guys like Connor Rogers, who I think is one of the best in the business. Dean Brugler has said a lot of good things about Riley Leonard already this summer. So people that I think know what they're doing and people that I think are honest evaluators do speak very highly of Riley. The questions are always going to be coming back from the injury, taking that step forward, staying healthy. Like we'll see if he's able to do that. But if he's able to stay healthy, I don't think it's outlandish at all that he's a first-round pick, and I would not be shocked at all if he's a top 20 pick when all is said and done, because he certainly has I mean, you can't teach him being almost 6'4", 6'3" and 5/8, 215 plus pounds, and running four. He ran 4.52 at Duke last year for scouts in the spring. So, like, this is a very talented kid. It's going to be all about a healthy season.
Well, Jesse is dropping a chat question before actually popping in. He wants to know if his performance at the Manning camp had any impact on any of this.
It's a funny question, Jesse, and I know it's an honest one too, but like, no, not really. NFL teams don't care about that type of stuff. So like the whole Manning camp thing is they're counselors. The former and current college quarterbacks are counselors for a host of middle school and high school kids, right? Like so but they do have I think it's three competitions that they
Right.
do in there, and obviously Riley won the Air It Out, which is really cool. And that's more for us though, right? The media and the fans that get super excited about like, wow, Riley was the best quarterback in the Manning passing gun. That's great. But all that to say is like NFL scouts are going to go look back at footage from the Manning passing academy and be like, oh man, look at that footwork. Look how strong that arm looks. Like they're not doing that necessarily, but it's great buzz preseason for us without question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has more to do with the fact that a year ago at this time, he was pretty highly considered. And after he led Duke to that win over Clemson, he blew up. And then, unfortunately, things unraveled as soon as he injured
Absolutely.
the ankle. If not for the, like, you know, we Vince and I talked a bit about it yesterday. If not for the ankle injury, he's probably getting ready for an NFL training camp right now.
So people that I talked to, Sean, to kind of illustrate that point, because you're 100% correct. Riley Leonard was either going to be in the NFL or at another school, because as soon as Mike Elko was talking about leaving and all that type of stuff, right? Like it was somewhere else taking a bigger opportunity or going to the NFL. Like Riley Leonard, I don't think was ever going to go back to Duke. Like maybe if Mike Elko comes back, but it was all dependent upon the injury ultimately, right? Like he was legitimately getting top 50 buzz for the 2024 NFL draft before he started getting banged up and started getting injured. So I think that he would very much be in the NFL locker room today if things didn't work out the way they did. But lucky for Notre Dame fans, hopefully it may work out in a great way. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, I think if he plays to just even moderate expectations, I think that 20 could ultimately be, you know, a low spot for him. Like he could go much higher just because he's a quarterback, and like quarterbacks tend to go high, as we all know. Sly Fox, one final recruiting thing before you check out and Jesse checks in, wants to know if you think the Blair commitment one way or another affects Ivan Taylor staying or going.
No, not really. I think for me, well, let me change that answer. That's actually an interesting question, Sly Fox. So if they get Jadon Blair, I don't think it changes anything. Like you're going to push for Ivan because you still want a third safety in this class, and Ivan Taylor's elite. I think though, if you don't get Jadon Blair, it makes it even more important that you get back in good graces with Ivan Taylor. Like you need to figure that guy out a little bit more. So that might just increase the severity. But either way, whether they get Jadon Blair or they don't get Jadon Blair, Notre Dame is going to continue to pursue Ivan Taylor because he is still technically committed to the class, and he is a player that they love as a football player and a young man.
All right. Anything dropping on the Champions Lounge anytime soon? You got coming up in the next day or two before the 4th?
Yeah. On top of the typical content that I'll be pushing out, I believe that I'll have a couple updates on a couple of the kids that are still on the board. I mentioned Dylan Robinson, mentioned Nathaniel Wusu-Boateng. I'm going to do my best to get you guys some intel as far as what is the latest with those recruitments heading down the stretch.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it, Ryan. Have a great 4th. Stay safe. Are your kids even old enough like to shoot their own fireworks yet, or is that like a couple years off still?
Yeah, that's still a couple years off. We're gonna take them to fireworks, but we're unfortunately at the ages where me and my wife might have to take separate cars to do the fireworks because I don't know how long the girls are going to last. So I might have to take them home and let my wife continue to do her thing. So that's kind of where we are in the universe right now. Yeah.
Good deal. All right. Have a good holiday, and I'll talk to you one more time next week then.
Sounds good. See you, boys.
All right.
See you, Ryan.
See you, Ryan. Ryan Roberts checking out. Jesse Stiers checking in. How are you today, sir?
It's been a long day. I was supposed to have a 6 a.m. tea time, so I got up at 4:45, and then we got there, and the course was like, sorry, we have an event today, so you guys can't golf. So I got up at like 4:45 for nothing.
So you got there, and then they told you that you couldn't get out?
Yeah, and the weird thing is the event didn't really start until like 8 or 8:15, and our tee time was 6, and we're only playing 9 holes. Like we would have been done and out of there by 8, and the guy just really had no sympathy. So I just drove back home and stayed home for the day because I didn't want to make another round trip to the office.
Elitist golf clubs. Come on, man. Give me a break.
But other than that, it's been a good day. My allergies are killing me, so my eyes are like super like goopy. I keep getting like crap coming out of my eyes. So.
All right. Well, enough of that. Yeah. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Well, I brought some whiteboards. I had some extra time.
Oh, well, you didn't tell me this.
I thought I'd keep it a surprise.
Jesse dropping some whiteboard.
I like to bring the surprises, not you overpromise and then I let everyone down.
Then you fall through the floor on the whole thing. All right. So are these the actual plays that we discussed you doing? Or did you just freelance and do a couple of your own plays?
No, I did just like last time. I did the right ones.
All right. Let's do it. Let's start with Colin Klein, the former Kansas State offensive coordinator, is the Texas A&M offensive coordinator. And there was something that I saw recently about a little offensive line wrinkle that they used at Kansas State last year that can be something that maybe we should be looking for. Notre Dame should be looking for when the Irish face Texas A&M in the opener. Is that what you've got right here?
Yeah, that's what I have here. That looks pretty good, right?
And maybe blow it up just a little bit more. There you go. That looks pretty good.
So really the important players here are the box players. So you see this is against, who was this against again?
I can't remember.
Oklahoma. It was Oklahoma.
Was it Oklahoma? Okay.
It was Oklahoma. So immediately the first thing I would question is Oklahoma has 7 guys in the box here, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. Kansas State comes out in a traditional I formation with the tight end to the right, so to the field side because the ball's on the left hash here. So immediately, you see that Kansas State has the box advantage because they have, 7 or 6 offensive linemen, a fullback and a running back. So you have basically 8 box players on offense against 7 box players on defense. And the way that this play is designed is the main player is the left guard and the fullback, because really everyone else is just going to block down. Like you see the left tackle here, he's going to pick up the end man on the line of scrimmage. The end man is, and this is important too, the end man here is trying to get across his face. He's crashing down towards the center, and that's by design, really, because what that's going to do is allow these two, linebacker and really safety to kind of work the end of the line of scrimmage. The center is reaching down on the nose guard. The right guard and right tackle are comboing.
One request: do you have the ability to draw, or like mark when you say right here? Like if you can mark the lineman or whoever the players that you're talking about, so to make it a little easier to follow. I think you've done that before, haven't you? Oh, hello. Yeah. On any front. What is this? Oh, hello.
Well, it took it away from me. So I'll just have to do it again real quick.
So it wiped out the whole board that you made?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That sucks. Give me 1 second.
Well, I mean, you want to just do the other play?
This one's pretty. I can get back to it pretty quick.
Okay.
I'll just be quicker.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your play up. Okay, so there's a tight end on the right. Now we're in an I formation again. Okay. So go from there.
Yeah, 1 second. This guy's out. Okay, so this time I'll mark kind of as we're going, so it'll make a little bit more sense. I'll just blow it up to focus on the box. So left tackle is reaching the end man on the line of scrimmage. The right guard and right tackle are working on their nose guard. The center is working to the nose guard on the left side of the field. And then the tight end is kicking out his guy in man a line of scrimmage. So really everyone's just kind of blocking down. Everyone's accounted for, and it leaves these linebackers to be vulnerable. But that's by design, because what's going to happen here is the left guard is going to fake pull. Essentially, he's going to take a drop step back and look like he's going to pull, to the right side. And what makes that even harder is the fullback is taking action that way. So if you're this quote unquote play side linebacker, everything is indicating that this play is coming down towards you. The left guard is coming towards you, and the fullback is coming towards you, because this linebacker over here immediately is saying pull, 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 because he's seeing his left guard in front of him pull. So ideally what would happen is if this left guard does indeed pull and the fullback comes down into this hole, these two linebackers are going to combo this play and essentially funnel the play to each other. But instead of this left guard pulling, what happens is he fakes a pull, and it almost works like a counter action, because the fullback still goes to the right, but then the left guard kind of leads up the hole here, and the running back takes a jab step like he's going to follow the action, and he's going to work his way back this way. This play really is predicated by – let me change colors here since I already have so many.
But basically with that fake step, like you're talking about, and the fact that the fullback is going to the right, both the linebackers get flowing in that direction because of the fake pull by the left guard, but then he stops, and then like you said, the linebackers have already over pursued, and then the running back follows the fake pull guard the other direction.
Yeah, so what should happen is this linebacker is noticing pull, and he starts working this way. But as my good old linebacker coach Matt Cohen would say, you always have to stay in phase with your guard. Just because you see him pulling doesn't mean you vacate immediately. What should happen is this field shoulder of the guard should always be matched by the front side shoulder of the linebacker. So his outside shoulder should always stay free, essentially, as he is flowing this way. But what happens is he over pursues his outside arm is going to over pursue, and he's going to be basically a full body length.
He's going to end up, basically his outside
center.
Shoulder ends up where his inside shoulder should be. Correct.
Right. And so instead of just staying in phase, he overcommits, and now the guard works up, and all he's got to do is seal off the backside, and the running back really has a wide open lane to get through here. But again, what should happen is this linebacker, and it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done, because you're reading this guard, center, fullback, running back situation triangle in a split second. So, I mean, you're taught most of the time when this left guard starts going, he's going, right? But when you fake a guard pull like this, it really tests the discipline of this backside linebacker, because he should take on the inside shoulder and flush this thing out to his safety that's probably coming down here and filling on the outside, right? So they're going to funnel this play to each other, but now he's sucked up on the inside, and this play is just going to bust open.
Excellent. And so again, the whole point of this play is the fact that, again, this play was run by Kansas State. Kansas State's former offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, is now the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And the whole purpose of this was the left guard fakes a pull to the right and then steps back up. The running back follows him in the hole, and it ends up being a huge gain. In the past, the linebacker you're talking about from Oklahoma, who didn't have the discipline to stay put, like that was
That was Maris Leofau.
That was something that Maris Leofau struggled at because of his over aggressiveness, where then he was not able to make up that ground. So if we see something like this in the first game against Texas A&M, this to me is going to be a real test of like where Notre Dame's linebackers are now, just in terms of,
it's a hard play for a young linebacker to make in their first game because they're amped up on adrenaline. You're focused on, okay, I at least know when I see a guard pulling, I'm going to get there quickly and blow that play up. But then, of course, they fake that, and now you've over pursued, and they have a wide open lane now. It's the duality of playing a linebacker. You're asked to make a lot of reads split second, but then that can come back to really bite you. You have to play with kind of controlled aggression, essentially. You have to be able to stay calm and, again, play in phase with that guard. You move as that guard moves. You keep that outside shoulder free as long as possible. You see him put his foot in the ground. You put your foot in the ground, and you're just mirroring him, essentially, down the line.
Right. Excellent. All right. Great first play, Jess. I like it. You recovered after the whiteboard blew up on you. So now the second play is going to be, this is the long Riley Leonard touchdown run when he was at Duke against Clemson last year.
This was the opener. Yeah, the opening game last season against Duke. This was a 44-yard run for a touchdown. I want to preface with the design of the play is really well. Duke didn't execute well. Riley Leonard broke a tackle, and his athletic ability is ultimately what took over. But on paper, this should be a really good play. Like, this is a play that's designed really well. So I'll go through it, but just know that Clemson kind of blew this play up, but he broke a tackle. So that's ultimately what made this play. But again, it's designed really well. So the ball is on.
Did I say against Duke? If I said against Duke, obviously I'm saying Riley Leonard for Duke against Clemson. This is the play that we're talking about. Riley Leonard's long touchdown run as the Duke quarterback against Clemson from last year. This is the play that we're talking about.
Yeah, opening game. This is when Clemson was, still in the top 10. This was a major upset. And again, this is what kind of put, Riley Leonard on the map before that injury. So just a couple things to kind of go through pre-snap. Ball's on the right hash.
Zoom in a little bit more if you would. There you go.
Ball's on the right hash. You have basically five defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and a corner that's kind of displaced with the wide receiver off to the right. Riley Leonard is in shotgun and 11 personnel, so he's got a tight end that's really an H-back to the field side, and then his running back is split out to the right into the boundary. So it's really kind of a balanced look. You got one wide receiver to the right, to the left. You have your H-back to the left, and you have your running back to the right. So what happens here, first thing, and this is Clemson. Clemson had to know this kind of going into the game. This is what they were going to do. This was the scouting report. But the H-back goes in pre-snap motion to the field side. So that's what this – I'll start with a new color here. That's what this red color is here. This running back is going pre-snap motion to the field side. And I don't know why Clemson did this. Again, it had to be a game plan thing. But this linebacker right here that's, lined up over the running back pre-snap, I believe this is Trotter, 54 for Clemson. They were just going to go – they were going man on man. So as this guy went motion, Trotter followed him. He completely vacated the spot, kept going. And again, I don't know why they did this. Most teams you see will just shift. Like, this linebacker will shift this way. This linebacker will shift this way. But for some reason, they wanted Trotter matched up one-on-one. He completely vacates, leaves a hole in the field right here and goes over the top. That's really significant in this play. So that all happens pre-snap. Let me get rid of a couple lines here. Now to kind of get into at the snap of the ball, Riley Leonard is immediately taking this thing and looking to the left. Like, he's going to throw basically a swing route to this running back. And then also what's going on in the background is this wide receiver over here is kind of also running, just like a flare route, just a real simple. So it looks like a screen to either the running back or the wide receiver. So everyone's eyes are immediately going to the left. This linebacker is going to the left. And then this is where the true design of the play comes in. All of these linemen, this left tackle to the field is going to leave the end man of the line of scrimmage. So he's going to block down on this nose guard. Center and right guard are going to block down on this nose guard. And then the right tackle is going to block down as well and leave this end man on the line of scrimmage. So both end man on the line of scrimmage are left untouched, but you have the left guard pulling to the boundary and you have the fullback pulling to the boundary. So what should happen is the left guard should seal off the end man of the line of scrimmage immediately. And again, Riley Leonard pre-snap is looking this way. He's looking like he's gonna, throw a pass.
Go to the left. Yeah.
And then this fullback should kind of tail in off the left guard. He should lead up the hole. And again, Trotter's gone, right? So this whole area of the field is now wide open.
Vacated. Wide open pasture.
All the right guard has to do is come up and seal off this linebacker. And now we have this H-back, tight end, fullback, whatever you want to call it, leading through the hole. And Riley Leonard, again, kind of like on the last play, looks this way, puts his foot in the ground, and he's running a counter backside. And that's essentially how the play should work. But, again, how I told you this play blew up, left guard here misses the end man in the line of scrimmage. Fullback doesn't really block anyone. Clemson misses a tackle on Riley Leonard. He breaks it and runs down the sideline and is able to make something out of nothing. But, again, this play designed on paper should work and should be something that Notre Dame should execute at a much higher level, essentially, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was waiting for, with all the lines that you were drawing there, I was waiting for like some face to take shape in the middle of that diagram or whatever. But essentially what you're saying is Clemson had a beautiful play dialed up that wasn't quite perfectly executed by the blockers in front of him, especially when you consider that, just that quick look to the left got virtually the entire defense flowing in the direction that you wanted and opened up the field for him on the right.
Yeah,
and Riley Leonard, because he's a great, strong runner, breaks a tackle and does the rest himself.
I mean, this is honestly perfect design. They're running to the area where the linebacker is vacating with the pre-snap motion. I mean, if that's not Jeremiah Love, I don't know what is. You flare out Jeremiah Love, and now it's a threat because now there's tape on him running the ball and catching the ball. So you start swinging him out of the backfield. What's the defense going to think if you've been throwing it to him 2-3 times in a row, right? You finally fake it to him, putting your foot in the ground. You got two of these guys pulling to the backside, and you're off to the races. I don't think every team is going to do what Clemson did and man on, this linebacker to the running back and have him follow. Because, again, Clemson Duke dialed up a play perfectly, right? Like, we're going to get this motion, you're going to vacate, and we're literally going to run the ball right at where you're vacating. It was a perfect play, got blown up because of some missed blocks, but Riley Leonard made a play because he's so athletic.
All right. Excellent. Excellent stuff. Seal City coach says we need video clips of these plays. One, if we did video clips, we couldn't call it Whiteboard. Two, we can't show the video clips because everything is copyrighted, and we can't show copyrighted stuff on YouTube and monetize the channel. So, because literally every time that we've tried to do any of that kind of stuff, it gets flagged because of the algorithms, that YouTube has that checks everything. And that's why we do the Whiteboard. So, yeah, I agree, Steel City.
I can post the link in the chat, right?
Yeah, you could put the link to it in the chat if people want to see the actual video. We just can't show the video because of the copyright stuff. So
there's the play to the Riley Leonard run, and then I'll find the one that shows the fake pulling guard as well.
All right.
So it doesn't seem like I'm just making stuff up. These things happen.
Yeah, I know.
And it's really hard to follow with a bunch of lines going everywhere.
Yeah, the more you continue to draw, the more those lines, like I said, I was waiting for the face to appear some other shape in the middle of it all. Great Whiteboard. Now, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it. We are 20 minutes in and we haven't even gotten to the hot topics.
Seriously, fill in the blank. It's blank that Phil Steele magazine has Notre Dame's wide receivers ranked as the number 10 unit in the nation heading into this season.
It's freaking exciting. When's the last time that we've seen Notre Dame wide receivers, so hyped up? We've been asking for production. We've been asking for at least 1,000, yard receiver. We've been asking for a guy to get over 30, 40 receptions outside of Michael Mayer, right? We want consistency at the position. We don't want a tight end that is, a glorified wide receiver. We want true wide receivers to stretch the field, deep vertical threats, someone to go up and high point the ball and get some of those touchdown passes, right? And then you want some of those quicker, faster guys to work underneath and really, put safeties and linebackers in a bind. So to me, it's really exciting. Is it a little premature? Yeah, because Notre Dame doesn't have quite the track record. So to come out and say, on paper, yeah, Notre Dame has a number 10, most exciting wide receiver room. Okay, that's fine. But now it's time to go out and execute. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of turnover. You have Mike Brown is now the wide receiver coach after Chauncey Stuckey left. You have a mixture of, guys who stayed, a couple grad transfers. There's a lot of question marks, but I still think it's something to be excited about combined with Ryan Leonard's talent.
Yeah, I guarantee they weren't ranked number 10 last year. But it also shows that they're doing their homework, because a lot of laziness tends to happen with some of these preseason publications. It's like, oh, you look at last year's production. Oh, okay. Well, what have they done? Oh, okay. They actually did go out and add a couple guys, significant guys from the transfer portal. So one, they've done their job by actually researching Notre Dame and taking a look at them. But just for everything that you said, the fact that they are ranked so high, especially considering where they were last year. I mean, they were probably lucky if they were top 100 unit last year, and now they're a top 10 unit. And and like Joe makes a good point, getting him hyped up for a letdown. I mean, come on, we're still dealing with BK PTSD, I think, at that point, if that's the direction you're going. New era, year 3, Marcus Freeman, new quarterback, new receivers, the whole thing. It's a revamped room from the position coach to the offensive coordinator to the actual bodies in the room. So I think Vince and I were talking when we actually got done with the show yesterday, right after we wrapped up. It's exciting to think about. We could actually see true elite level quarterback play this season, combined with elite level wide receivers helping out this season. So that's what it all comes down to me. But Stymie does, have a good question. What is a magazine? Like, can you even find an actual hard copy magazine outside of an airport newsstand these days? Like, where?
I think the grocery store.
Yeah, it's probably a good point. Like Walmart, Meijer, whatever it happens to be.
Martin's.
DK,
Kroger.
Thank you for the super chat for Jesse. 1 Red Bull and Tito's coming up.
Thanks.
Did you take any allergy medicine today? Or
no?
That's obvious. That's obvious. Just
I told you my eyes.
Take the Claritin. Do you have any in the medicine cabinet?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what are you even doing then? What are you even doing if you've got it and you're not taking it?
Well, the issue is I need to take my contacts out because like the allergens and the pollutants and all that gunk are on my contacts, but I hate doing the show with my glasses on because of the glare. So really, I'm just sucking it up for everyone here.
I think you're distracting everyone with all your itching and everything else that you've got going on. All right. We'll see if you can kind of burrow on through here. If you could have made one USC football player, if you could pick one former USC football player all time and have him play for Notre Dame instead of USC, what player are you picking?
To me, I went with, again, these questions are always kind of fall in my era or my generation of when I was around to watch.
Okay, I've got an idea of who I'm expecting, but go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty easy list, I think, when you think about it. It comes down to Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer. You could go Reggie Bush. You could go Tyron Smith. That's not a real sexy pick, but Troy Polamalu could be on that list.
Hey, you can only pick one, so who are you going with?
Junior Seau could be on that list.
You're doing the typical Jesse cop-out and just rattling off 20 different guys.
No, I'm giving you one. I'm giving you my thought process.
Okay. So your lifetime. Your lifetime, basically. You're watching. John says O.J. Simpson. I don't know if that's a joke or if that's serious, but okay.
I mean, really, I just have to go, and I know this sounds like an easy answer, but it has to be Reggie Bush, because I felt like Notre Dame, between Jimmy Clausen and Brady Quinn, like the quarterbacks were there. Like, yeah, like Leonard and Palmer are what they are, but I'm going to roll the dice on my guys, right? Like the talent level was pretty there. It's just the other guys kind of went on and had a little bit more success in the NFL. But when you look at what could have made the difference, to me, was an explosive running back coming out of the backfield and a running back Notre Dame didn't have to worry about defensively. So, that's kind of where I fall. I think Keyshawn Johnson could also maybe fall on that list.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was too, impactful. So for me, I just have to go with Reggie
You'd have a hard
Bush.
time convincing him of that. Plus, he hates Notre Dame. I don't know if he hates Notre Dame just because he went to USC or if he went to USC because he hates Notre Dame. But
John actually brings up a really good one here, Caleb Williams, because that was in a window where you ask a lot of Notre Dame fans if you swap in a really good quarterback with the defense that they had last year, what could they potentially overcome in combination? So I think that's a really good answer. And again, it just feels not right because of how recent it is. So I'm going to go Reggie Bush, but Caleb Williams is a very close second.
Yeah, because, I think if you look back at Matt Leinart, for example, if you swapped out Brady Quinn for Matt Leinart,
that's what I mean.
I don't think you're that much better. That team was still more about the overall talent that Matt Leinart had around him in comparison to, the overall entirety of what Notre Dame's roster had. But yeah, I mean, like Caleb Williams, you throw him in there the last 2 years, like think about the fact what Marcus Freeman was able to do in year one with Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner. And then last year with an okay Sam Hartman, but as improved as the defense was, I mean, you're probably talking about a playoff team at a minimum last year, if not the last 2 years under Marcus Freeman, if they have Caleb Williams. So, I mean, that is a good call. Like if you just go here recently, I went back and kind of looked, more macro at this. And I just, like Marcus Allen is a guy that
Chiefs running back.
He ended up with the Chiefs for, I think it was the last 4 years after he left the Raiders, but he backed up and blocked for Charles White at USC for 2 years while Charles White was winning the Heisman. And then his senior year, he runs for over 2,300 yards and wins a Heisman of his own. And then, he got jerked around by Al Davis with the Raiders and all that stuff. But Marcus Allen was just like, he was so smooth. He glided in that stride that he had, and he never took big hits because it seemed like he had eyes in the back of his head, and he was just such a pure runner. So I would go with Marcus Allen. Like the best running back Notre Dame had back in that day was Vegas Ferguson, another really good running back, but Marcus Allen won the Heisman, then he went on to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I would go with Marcus there, late 70s, early 80s guy. Some other good ones though. Ronnie Lott, that guy was a monster. Have you ever seen like old footage of Ronnie Lott with the 49ers and some of the hits he laid on people?
I did not, or I have not.
He was basically like Troy Polamalu before Troy Polamalu. Stymie says Clay Matthews. I love Clay Matthews when he was playing for the Cleveland Browns in the 70s and 80s. Like just classic. When you think of old school middle linebacker, Clay Matthews was it. It was obviously he was Clay Matthews Sr. or Clay Matthews Jr.'s dad. So I think that's who he's talking. Maybe he's talking about junior for that matter. But when you say Clay Matthews, I think of senior. All right, so a few Notre Dame game lines on FanDuel right now. Notre Dame plus 1.5, so a 1.5 point underdog against Texas A&M. They are 9.5 point favorites against Louisville, 4.5 point favorites against Florida State, and 3.5 point favorites against USC. Which of those two lines are you most confident in for the Irish right now? Most confident they'll cover?
I'm most confident in, first and foremost, the plus 1.5 versus Texas A&M, because I think they're going to win that game. So that immediately, takes care of that one. The Louisville game, I wouldn't touch. 9.5 is big, especially for a team that beat you the way they did last year. So already kind of spooked by that. So it comes down to Florida State and USC. Florida State's at home. I think they're going to have – so there's two things. Like Florida State, I feel like, is a better team, but I like Notre Dame at home. USC is a lesser of a team, but then there's always, going on the road against one of your rivals. So to me, I like USC just because I don't like the shape that their roster is in. I think there's a bit more turnover, and the way they performed last season with Caleb Williams at quarterback, I just feel a little bit more confident in that situation.
So I'll start backwards and go forwards, since you were just talking about USC. I don't like that, since it is the last game of the season this year. Who knows exactly what either team is going to be by Thanksgiving weekend, especially USC. They could either be completely outperforming what we thought or completely underperforming it. 3.5, like if you wanted to take it right now, is actually not bad because of the fact that it's at the end of the season and Notre Dame should be the better team. 4.5 against Florida State at home. I feel fairly comfortable in that right now, but still kind of, not real sure. I love the Texas A&M, like we're talked about. I think Notre Dame should be at least a 3.5 point favorite at Texas A&M based on the quarterbacks alone and the fact that Notre Dame definitely has a championship level defense. Whether or not Texas A&M is that improved by game one, either offensively or defensively, I think is a big question. I actually like that 9.5 against Louisville right now because I'm feeling like Notre Dame is just going to blow the brakes off Louisville at home. I think last year was a total aberration. I realize 9.5 points is big, but I actually am more confident in that 9.5 against Louisville than either of those other two games they're favored in right now because of where it is, the fact that it's a home game, the fact that they've got last year's Louisville game as a motivation, all that kind of stuff. All right. We know the LA Lakers kind of went and made, the off the beaten path choice by hiring JJ Redick as their head coach last week. Let me ask you this one. Which polarizing team, professional team, is under the most pressure to win a championship? The Yankees, the Lakers, or the Cowboys?
Yeah, so the way I looked at this was, I guess I'll kind of talk through my breakdown on this one. The Yankees, they haven't won a World Series since 2009, and not only that, but they haven't been back to a World Series since 2009, if my memory serves me right. The Los Angeles Lakers won a championship in the bubble. I know that's highly scrutinized because it was the bubble.
Right.
The thing about that one compared to the other sports seasons is like baseball, for example, is the baseball was a completely condensed season. The NBA season was pretty much wrapped up, by like the playoffs were just on the horizon as they entered their bubble, right? So like I get it, but at the same time, I don't because they played a full season. They put everyone in the bubble. Everyone played how they played. They won a championship. Okay, whatever. Before that, their championship came in 2009 and 2010. So the repeat, when Kobe and I believe Shaq won their championships. So that puts the Yankees and the Lakers kind of in the same boat, really. 2009, 2010 was their most recent success. And then for the Cowboys, you got to go back all the way to 1996?
Super Bowl 30. Yep.
And the thing about the Cowboys is, and you know, I guess in cross comparison to the Lakers and the Yankees, is the Yankees and the Lakers consistently have been in the playoffs. You know, the Yankees, while haven't been, you know, as many World Series, they've made some AL championships. They've, you know, made progression in the playoffs. Cowboys, not so much. So final verdict, I'm going to have to go with the Yankees because I think the Yankees have ownership that are committed to winning and expending all resources, aka money, on winning. Like, look at their lineup this year. It's Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, you know, Verdugo. Like, they have the highest payroll. They're willing to spend money. Can't say the same about the Cowboys. The Cowboys aren't necessarily, in my opinion, you know, all the way in. And so you combine a franchise that has a lot of expectations, that expends a lot of resources in comparison to the rest of the league, and they haven't been to a World Series since 2009. I'm circling back to the Yankees.
So you're going with the Yankees. I'm going to go Lakers, and here's why. I mean, you outlined all the cases for everybody. Here's why I'm going to say it's not the Yankees. Brian Cashman has been in the organization since 1996, and he's been the he's been the general manager since 1998. They won early on, but look at where they've been. What's the standard been for the Yankees the last few years? They sure seem like they're content just to get into the playoffs. If they were under any real actual pressure to win a World Series, Brian Cashman would have been gone like 4 years ago. Like, they are completely content just to keep riding it out with Brian Cashman while he doesn't put a true championship caliber team on the field. It is not the Dallas Cowboys. There's no pressure there because the owner can't fire himself or won't fire himself. And he's the one making all the calls with that. So I can't say it's the Dallas Cowboys, you know, so basically a little bit different just because of the structure, but both of them have completely comfortable people in the positions of power calling the shots. So I can't say it's them. I would say, like you said, even though the Lakers are the most recent to actually win a championship, I don't think there's necessarily pressure for them to win a championship this year, but it's coming. And so I think almost by default, I think it's the Lakers because I just don't feel like the other two, there's no real discomfort for either Cashman, and there's definitely not for Jerry Jones.
I see your rationale.
Okay.
The Lakers, there is pressure for the Lakers to win, and they're not winning. The Cowboys and the Yankees are content with the result that they're getting. The Lakers aren't. They want a better result, and they're not getting it, and everyone knows that.
Yeah, I don't know about Yankees and Lakers fans having realistic expectations. I think fans of all those teams have, less than maybe realistic expectations. But because they're fans of those teams, I think especially if you asked fans, who live in those markets, I don't think that if you polled them what their expectations are, I think that a vast majority would say championship every year. So Monday was the 20th anniversary of the Derek Jeter catch at Yankee Stadium, where he ranges behind third base into foul territory, catches a pop-up, and then he falls into the stands. My question to you, do you buy or sell it as the most overrated play in baseball history?
So I sell it as let me make sure I read this word for word. I sell it as being the most overrated play in baseball history because I'm sure there is some other play that's overrated, but I'm buying it as an overrated play in general. I'm buying it as probably people call it one of the most iconic catches of all time. I'm definitely buying it as it being, one of the most overrated iconic plays. And it's just simply, it's a very routine play. He's tracking down a pop-up. It's the only part that makes it tough is that he falls into the stands. But at that point, he's already caught the ball.
Right.
Falling into the stand. It's not like he's falling into the stands and catching the ball.
Right. He didn't
he's
make
already
the catch
caught
while
the ball.
falling into the stands. Yeah.
His momentum is just taking him into the stands. The play itself is not hard. It's just afterwards he falls into the stands and everyone thinks it's this tough play.
It looks more iconic than it is.
Exactly. It's all he did was make the catch and then go crashing into the stands. It's not like he's falling into the stands and making the catch at the same time.
Exactly.
It's that neither of those things are happening. He's basically an outfielder running down a fly ball, catches it, and then doesn't know where he's at and crashes into the stands. It's really not a hard play.
Yeah. And I think actually what David is saying, that his more iconic play is the flip play at a home plate against the Oakland A's. I think that is a much more that is the play for me with Derek Jeter. I just feel like this play that we're talking about, again, like if he's at the Oakland Coliseum, it's a routine pop-up. He stands there and makes the catch because there's a million miles of foul territory at the Coliseum. The play, again, it wasn't even made more difficult. It's just that the stands are closer. And so it looks more exciting because of the fact that he falls into the stands. But like you said, he makes the catch in plenty of room in fair territory. And then he falls into the stands because that's where his momentum is taking him. The flip play was a great play, but again, like the pop-up play that we're talking about, it's not like he's Willie Mays over the shoulder running down that ball in center field. And he's not Bo Jackson, running up the left field wall, and making the catch. So I just think I've just always felt like because it looks good on video, it has got much more play than it deserves. The Derek Jeter
100%. Play. Any home run that's been robbed is harder than that play by Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Any home run that has been brought back by an outfielder is harder than what Derek Jeter did.
Yeah, exactly. It just looks tougher just because of Yankee Stadium dimensions and what happened afterwards. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Under Armour has signed the Cavender twins, Haley and Hannah, to a 3-year brand ambassador partnership.
It's not surprising. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, I think that they're playing basketball more to do with their brand deals than what basketball, like providing talent to the Miami basketball
Style over
team.
Substance. Yes.
They are on that roster because of the brand deals they get, their influencers.
They couldn't make any money when they tried to retire.
That's what I mean. If they were that good at basketball, they never would have stepped away for that year. And the one twin, coming back later than the other. Again, I think that all of this is happening. They had to find a college to essentially take them on. Miami was the path of least resistance. They've already been there before. They already know everything. How do we make all these other brand deals work? Because they're always doing, photo shoots for this, deals with this. So again, it's not surprising to me because I think more so they're playing basketball because of the brands and not vice versa. They're not getting the brands because they're elite at basketball.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And obviously, their looks obviously play into it as well. For and it comes down to they've got a great big social media following. They've got like 4.5 million followers on TikTok, apparently, which is just insane. 4.5 million on TikTok. But they're going out there, fish lips, and doing their dances and everything else. And there are many more people who have less of a name and profile, like sort of, I don't want to say profile, but people who I've never heard of, like, I know who they are because I've actually seen them. They've played against Notre Dame a couple of years ago, when they transferred to Miami. But you're absolutely right. It's like style over substance. But hey, I can't blame Under Armour because they're trying to sell their products. They're going to go out there. They're going to pitch products, demonstrate products, do all this stuff. Under Armour wants to sell their stuff. This feels like something, like Riley Leonard's social media following is not near what the Cavender twins' social media following is. But that has obviously gone a long way. But it feels like with Notre Dame being the biggest brand, school that Under Armour has, especially after, by the way, as you let me know today, Auburn left Under Armour and they're going to Nike now. But it feels like if maybe some Notre Dame people kind of up their game a little bit, this is something that Under Armour should be in with a Notre Dame athlete. But I mean, that's a great point. Like I really do, because like they tried to sign some kind of developmental deal with WWE when they left basketball last year, but I don't think it worked out. And I think that that's ultimately why they went back to basketball this season, to try to make more money off their social media. Speaking of TikTok, the latest TikTok travel trend is passengers sharing their stories of sitting silently and screen-free for long hours at a time during airline trips, their trips on airplanes. That means no phones, no iPads, no music, no sleep, no magazines, stymie, no nothing. It's known as raw dogging a flight. Have you heard of this before? Before I brought this up, have you heard of this raw dogging?
Yeah,
thing?
so I couldn't, when you asked me this question, I honestly had to think, because I was like, did we talk about this? Because I recently saw this, and yeah, it's basically all you can literally do is stare straight ahead at the flight tracker that shows, you traveling along to your destination.
It's David Putty on Seinfeld. Have you seen that episode where he's just sitting there like...
But there's no music, no, sleeping. Sleeping is the hard one for me, because that can kill all time.
Well, and again, like, you're so bored, you're not doing anything else. I think your natural tendency would want to be.
Yeah, you're literally
asleep.
just staring straight ahead the entire flight. Nothing else. How long I could make it? Maybe 2 hours.
That was what the question was going to be. What's the longest you could go on a flight with no form of, like, no entertainment at all?
If there was something on the line, of course I could probably make it happen, right? Like if you were like $1 million, fly 5 hours to California.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean?
That's a different story.
But just doing it to do it, I think my max would be like an hour to 2, maybe. And then I would go to sleep or put in some music or something.
My max is like 15 minutes, I think. I have no shot. Stymie says 5. And I fly enough that I know it's like I've got to distract myself. And if I'm not doing one of these things, typically I listen, like to podcasts when I'm flying, maybe do a little bit of reading, maybe get out the computer, do a little bit of work if there, some things to write up and stuff like that. I've got to be doing something. I've got to kill that time, because, I can try to sleep on the plane, but I don't tend to sleep very well on the planes. Especially like after games and stuff like that, when we're flying back, because your adrenaline is just kind of naturally, pushed up from, calling a game and things like that. But, even if it was just a vacation, I would have no shot. I've got to have something to occupy my time when I'm on a plane. I can't just sit there and stare out into space with nothing going on. Because you're not even supposed to snack, I guess. Like no snacks, no drinks, none of that stuff.
Nothing. I don't understand why these things become trends. Like what? Like why would you want to do that to yourself?
I know.
You're not getting anything.
Well, now it's becoming, like everyone's trying to one up each other. Because I think I saw like the record is like 11 hours or something.
Yeah,
like
like international flights.
Yeah.
Heck no.
Nuts.
There's a debate going on in the chat right now. I want your opinion. Okay. Everything aside, you go back from the beginning. You know the numbers in career you're getting out of Jeter and A-Rod. Who are you picking? One or the other?
Jeter,
everything
100%.
Else.
Jeter 100%. Jeter 100%.
Okay.
He's a team guy. Like, say everything else that you want about him. Like, team guy, still produced. A-Rod, obviously a sketchy personality. I don't think that he was. I think like who was more beloved in the locker room, in the clubhouse? Derek Jeter, right?
Okay.
What's your choice?
I want to say A-Rod, because I get caught up in the pop. Like the dude, you can't, like, they were both really good defenders.
So you're accepting the steroids and just
That's
kinda
why I said
rolling with
everything
it?
to the side. Everything to the side. The steroids,
So we don't know about the steroids.
that's
Is
what I
you're
mean.
saying?
You're
Okay.
just looking at it at a surface level, stats on paper. But you bring up a good point because A-Rod outweighs Jeter offensively, but what Jeter does in a clubhouse in terms of keeping a team together,
Right.
that can, outweigh offensive production. Honestly, this is why I brought it up. I think it's a good question. You said everything to the side, like Jeter's persona and his, how he thinks of himself, and the steroids with A-Rod, and just look at plain facts. I think it's hard to say. But I fall in love with a guy who can hit. But that's just naturally me because I was a guy who enjoyed hitting, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, Jeter could hit. He just didn't have the home runs, obviously.
He didn't have the slug.
A-Rod had. But he was also a better day in and day out defender. I mean, A-Rod was still a decent defender, until he took the roids and got a little bit bigger. But Jeter was a better defender as well.
All right. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just like to know people's perspective.
Sure. I guess I shouldn't be surprised because you are all in. You and Evan Sharpley are all in on Bonds, and A-Rod should be in the Hall of Fame. Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was doing steroids during that era. It's just a matter of who got caught and who didn't.
Right. I think there's an argument for it. There's a legit argument.
Even if you're swolled up, you still got to be able to flick that bat at the ball,
That's very true. That's very true. All right, well, that's going to do it today. Again, we're going to have a little bit of altered schedule this week because the 4th of July is Thursday. We've got a regular mailbag show coming up tomorrow. We in, we out. I'm going to post the thread on the Champions Lounge tomorrow since Thursday is the 4th, but we in, we out is going to be Friday instead of Thursday this week. Are you going to be with us on Friday this week?
You'll have to visit the
So that's a yes
calendar.
Oh, you filled out the mysterious calendar now.
I filled out the calendar.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today as I go look at the calendar now and see what's coming up on Friday. Go out and play some 6 a.m. golf and then
we out.
See if you get thrown off the course again. Hit the like button before you check out. Appreciate you being here as always, and we'll talk to you later on Ivy Nation Sports Talk.